There's a basketball game going on this campus apparently tonight, right? Now, the non-rivalrous meaning of equality is that the rules of the basketball game are what they are, and the authority applies those rules to both teams without favor or prejudice, right? Everybody plays by the same rule, and the outcome is unpredictable, right? There's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser. Of course, there could be a tie, I guess. Or do you have overtime in basketball? I don't know. But anyway, usually there's a winner and a loser. That's not end-state equality. That's not equality of result. If we were to apply end-state equality, rivalrous equality, to a basketball game, every game would have to end in a tie. So one team gets ahead, the referee says, okay, I'm going to penalize that, hold that team back until the other team catches up, right? That's end-state equality. And that's the kind of equality, unfortunately, that far too many politicians of both major parties seem to pursue. You can't have them both. If the rule is everybody plays by the same rules, then the outcome is not going to be equal. But if the rule is the outcomes must be equal, then the teams can't play by the same rules. There has to be discrimination in favor or against. What does equality imply for income taxes? Now we all know this character up here, right? Tim Geithner. Well, you know, one easy interpretation of equality is that everybody should pay what they're supposed to pay. But Treasury secretaries don't have to do that. But let's consider some figures here. These are for 2005, and it's the latest data I could find. It was for 2005. The top 20% of taxpayers pay 86.3% of federal income taxes. Now, this doesn't count the payroll tax and other taxes, just federal income taxes. But they generate only 55.1% of pre-tax income. That's the top 20%. The top 10%, a smaller group, collectively pay 72.7% of the total taxes paid, while generating 40.9% of the pre-tax income. The top 5% collectively pay 60.7% of the total federal income taxes collected, but generate 31.3% of pre-tax income. Is that equal? Well, what if we had a flat tax? And it doesn't make any difference what the flat tax rate could be. 10%, 20%, 33%, although I think anything over 10%, anything beyond the tithe is theft. But no, I'm not talking about what the tax rate is going to be here. It can be anything, I don't care. But as long as it's flat, as long as everybody's paying the same percentage rate, then it would be true that the percent of the total tax paid by any particular group, whether it's the top 20 or 10 or 5 or 1 for that matter, the percent of the tax would equal the percent of the income that those people are paying the taxes, total income on which taxes are paid. That seems to me to be a more workable idea of the notion of equality when it comes to taxes than the progressive tax, which is the more taxable income you have, you pay higher and higher rates on successive increments of your income, marginal rates they're called. I think it should be impossible to raise a tax rate for some, while at the same time lowering a tax rate for another. I think that is manifestly unequal treatment by the law. If we're going to have a tax, My preference is that it be flat. But even beyond that, don't allow the politicians to raise a tax rate for some people, lower a tax rate for others. Why? What's the danger in that? The danger in that is that people get the idea, I'm going to get a goodie that somebody else is going to pay for. Right? They're paying. I get the extra. Right? That, of course, cannot be true in the long run. But that is the illusion that is created when an income tax is applied such that it's possible to raise the tax rate paid by one person and at the same time lower the tax rate paid by another. Think of this. Hugo Chavez, president of Venezuela, right? And I think it was Sunday they had a referendum in which term limits were eliminated. I think previously there was a 2-term limit for the president or something like that. Anyway, there was a referendum and the term limit was thrown out. The analysis of the votes cast was that almost all the votes for Chavez came from people, Venezuelans, who are net tax consumers. As they got more goodies than the taxes they paid. The net taxpayers, the people who were paying more taxes than the goodies that they were getting, they almost uniformly voted against Hugo Chavez. Once you cross that 50% threshold, right, where the number of net tax consumers is greater than the number of net taxpayers, then watch out. Because the way you succeed in politics is tax him and give to me. And I'm a net tax consumer. Hayek again, on taxes, in particular a flat tax. One of the books that Hayek wrote was published in 1960 at University of Chicago Press. He called it The Constitution of Liberty. In it, he quotes a British political philosopher, McCulloch, to this effect: the moment you abandon the cardinal principle of exacting from all individuals the same proportion of their income or their property, you are at sea without a rudder or compass, and there is no amount of injustice and folly you may not commit. If you have a hard rule, everybody pays the same percent, no games permitted, no creation of the illusion of getting something for nothing, and it's all the same percent, then maybe you could call that equal treatment. Okay? Certainly it has a better claim on equal treatment than our current tax system in the United States. And finally, almost ended right on time, I want to give a taxonomy of political regimes, but first I suppose I should explain that word taxonomy. It has nothing to do with taxes. People in biology know the word taxonomy very well. A taxonomy is a classification scheme. It's like a file cabinet. It's a set of categories into which you put things. Okay? So I want to talk about 4 different kinds of political regimes. And I'm going to take into consideration in the definition of these 4 political regimes, 4 types of political regimes, first of all, the form of government. What type of government is it? And then the scope of government. That is, how many things can government do? How big can the government get? Notice those are 2 separate questions. The form of government you have and what government is permitted to do. Those are distinct issues. In each case, there are 2 types. There's one form of government, democracy. Its antithesis is authoritarian. Democracy, what does that mean? That means that the political decision maker